Hey folks, Mike Lundy here with Official Alaska Magazine, and today, as you thought recently, we've completed all 10 of the top 10 king salmon flies for the April main feature. Now we have 4 honorable mentions to go over, and first of those 4, I used its debut in 2015. It worked phenomenal for me on the Parks Highway streams for king season. This is the Prom Dress Intruder. This basically combines the tying principles of the Intruder and the prom dress in the one. You can tie it on a Waddington shank or on a tube. Here, this blue chartreuse model did excellent last year. These two were tied on tubes. These range in length from about 4.5 to 6 inches. As a rule of thumb, you can't go any shorter than 4.5, where the skirts can overlap each other. That won't have the right action in the water. I wouldn't go any bigger than 6 at that point, just a little bit too big. This one right here with the little extra topping here from the saddle hackle is probably about maybe 5 1/4, 5.5 inches long, so about the size of a K15 quickfish. Now we're going to show how to tie this today. And we're just going to tie the basic generic one. So this is we're going to use the ostrich for the spay hackle, and then for the spinnerbait like skirt like you would on the prom dress, we're using blue flashabou. Again, blue and chartreuse is absolutely deadly on kings early in the season, anywhere to lower river, close to tidewater. So that's pretty much too many ingredients right there. And at that point, you can also add on Lady Amherst and other stuff for extra aesthetics, for looks. But we're going to tie it on a tube today. So here we have a small 1/16 inch diameter tube. And as usual, use a lighter to get started. This is an HMH tube. Lunar ones are also work fine. I'm going to put it right through my tube adapter here in my mandrel. Okay. I'll slide that on like that. You can see it is on the mandrel, or the tube is on a mandrel. I'll put it into the tube adapter. Cinch it in place, and we're ready to start tying. And for this, any 6/0 thread's the way to go. Uni's fine, Verivos. So step 1, I'm just going to make a dubbing ball in the very back of the tube. That way, when I center tie in my flashabou, it's going to flare off the side instead of just lay flat down. It's something to anchor it against. So here we have a royal blue flashabou. Now what I'm going to do is cut about roughly 10 to 15 strands, about maybe 5 inches long, so about that long. Alright. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that pre-ready. Like I mentioned first, the dubbing ball is actually the very first thing you want to do. My apologies. So, wax your thread. You don't need a big dubbing ball, just something big enough where, like I said, as you center tie your flash and you fold it over in a downward angle, it's going to prop it up and help flare it out to the side more, and it's going to look really deadly in the water during the swing presentation. So this thing can be tied in a variety of color combinations. Black and blue is another good one. Blue and purple, that's a traditional favorite by George Cook. Black and red's a good one. Black and green, again, your traditional king salmon colors you would use on other intruder style flies and other flies that I wrote about in the April main feature. Alright, so now we're going to build up our dubbing ball here. I usually like to use the same color combination I'm using for the color combo, so in this case I use chartreuse dubbing for that. Alright, so now we have our flashabou. tie this at an angle. Usually take about 3 to 4 of these bundles to complete the first skirt. Alright. Fold the vise down at an angle. I recommend using a rotary vise on this. Alright, fold this at an angle right here. Every once in a while I may have a couple strands that are kind of not want to cooperate. You just break them apart and just keep going. Alright, that was bundle number 1. So like I said, it usually takes about 2 to 3 to complete the whole thing on the first skirt. We're going to break this down to a 2-part tutorial here. That's why I'm going to try to, so the video isn't so long. But this Prom Dress Intruder is also available actually online for purchase from Luke Safarik, who is a custom fly tyer in British Columbia, and he ties up a beautiful version where he uses polar bear hair as the main natural fur of choice. And it's really great material. It's really translucent and shows up really well in the water, and it works really good for anchoring against your spay hackle, which is mainly using ostrich or rhea. Here's bundle number 2. As you see, I make a center fold tie, usually about 6 to 8 wraps. Then the other bundle's facing towards this direction. Now I'm going to rotate the vise. I'm going to take all these strands, fold them over against each other. Alright, and then we'll tie that down. As you see, as I'm doing this is how I'm forming that spinner bait-like skirt, as I mentioned so many times in some of the other previous articles I've written about for Fish Alaska. Alright, then that is number 2. Now we have just a little bit of space left, so the third bundle should be plenty. Now, cut the third bundle. Again, usually about 10 strands. I would do no more than 20 at most. And again, you're definitely going to want to buy several packages of flash to fill this. You can't just go to the store and pick up one. I recommend buying a couple. That way, it's going to take more to make more. Alright, so there's the last clump. I got about 15 strands in that. Get that. Usually hold it at an angle like this. One loose wrap. Keep it nice and tight. Alright. Now we're going to pull this a little bit more. I'm going to fold that down. Sometimes I'll take my finger, a little bit of saliva, and make sure everything's all wrapped back. At this point, I'm just going to build a nice well-tapered head, so that way I have a nice surface to formulate my dubbing loop for spinning the ostrich. Alright, my head looks pretty good. Now at this point, I'm just going to get my vise back in the original position here. I'm just going to take some head cement here. Where did my head cement go? There we go. Let's place for a second. Alright, so basically any head cement like this. This way it just kind of cements the wraps down. You can also use some clear cure goo with a UV light such as this. can use a thin application of clear goo right here with a UV light and dry it. That's another popular strategy for doing this. That way it doesn't come undone. Alright, after that, I will now spin my ostrich. So for this, I'm going to use the green ostrich. Rhea also works really well. As we mentioned before, it's got great movement in the water. It's a really popular feather for spay, hackle, and intruder style flies. So many professionals across the anadromous realms, George Cook, Tony Weaver, Ed Ward, Scott Hall, they all have their popular strategies for spinning ostrich, and they all work really well. Each one has their own preferred strategy. Even a lot of the good guides in Bristol Bay. The technique I like doing for spinning ostrich, I like Scott Hall's method. What you basically do is, instead of painstakingly taking each individual fiber and cutting 2-3 off at a time, you can actually cut off a certain section of the stem, because they're interspaced. If you see, they're interspaced naturally at a certain distance on here. So what I'm going to do is I usually want about between 10 to 20 ostrich fibers on that back skirt. So I'm just going to cut a certain section of this stem like that. So what I'm ultimately going to do is I'm going to spin this section in the dubbing loop, and I don't have to worry about inserting 2, 3, 4 at a time and then spacing them out with my fingers. So this is the method that we're going to do, and I'll show you how that's done. So first we're going to make our dubbing loop. And for my dubbing spinner choice, by the way, for this is the OPST. Other dubbing spinners will work, but this one works excellent for spinning the ostrich. And I like this. I like to spin my ostrich kind of slow. That way the loop doesn't spin out of control. If it spins out of control, then other materials can get inside the loop, and it will affect the ability when your materials get laid on the thread head. So there's one. There's two. Alright, I'll lock this dubbing loop in place. Alright, loop is secured. Now I'm just going to advance this forward right here. And I'm just going to cover this up with always have to wax your dubbing loops. Very important to do this, or always important to wax your dubbing loops, or materials get in there and I'm sorry. It's always important to wax your dubbing loop, or materials will fall out and then it'll drive you nuts. Alright, now that I got this thing waxed, I'm going to take the dubbing spinner right here, going to insert it into the bottom of the loop. Now it's secured. I'm going to take my right hand, hold the loop open. This side I'm going to spin. I'm going to insert that next. Okay, now I got it in there while keeping pressure as you can see. They're all spaced to a natural distance, very manipulation required. Now what I'm going to do at this point, I'm going to basically physically spin the dubbing loop. I usually like to hold it more at an angle so that way it doesn't tangle in the flash. So now I'm going to spin it. I'm going to spin a little bit to get it tight. Then I will cut the, it's just a little longer. Let's see here. There we go. That should be a good distance. All right. All right, now we'll cut the closest possible to the Alright, now I can start spinning. Every once in a while the flash boot sometimes tries to creep into the loop, but you just take your fingers and saliva, you can move it back. Alright, now that's done, you can start spinning the ostrich. Make sure you keep your loop nice and tight and put a nice firm pressure. Don't be afraid to take a Bakken tool to make sure that these spin okay. Alright. So I'm kind of messed up a little bit here, but we'll fix it here. Spin a little more. And so some of you spin a little too fast, so we'll spin a control and the ostrich won't look as good. Alright, that should probably do it. Now we'll just now we'll pull this forward. Make sure all the fibers are on one side. Alright, here we go. Spin this around. Alright. There she is spun. I'm just going to spin this around a few times forward so I can tie this off. Tie the dubbing loop off here a few times. Alright, cut the access here. We'll just straighten out this ostrich. Seems to come out the best, but mainly want to What I'll usually do sometimes, I'll look around and make sure the ostrich spun the best. Like here, for example, I must have missed a gap right here, so I'll just usually do, I'll have a couple individual fibers to fix that. So always make sure you inspect your spinning. If you missed a couple, not a big deal. You can just physically go in there and hand tie a couple like this, like I just did. Not missing any gaps. There we go. That is the first skirt, the Prom Dress Intruder. All we gotta do now is just build up the head, do the body. So this is part 1 of the Prom Dress Intruder with Mike Lundy. And thanks for watching, and stay tuned for part 2 coming up next.